We're happy to welcome her back to SOAS. She's been here before, where she once studied law and politics as well, but also been here on panels. And is it true that John McDonnell is the only British MP who's visited, pretty much?
I think so, yeah, because we had COVID in the middle.
Okay, so John McDonnell MP, the only person who's bothered to go to Belmarsh to see our man, and he's the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group I've set up, this group, ICOP, which I won't talk about, which Nina introduced you to. We've also set up an All-Party Parliamentary Group, so you can come with us into House of Commons and Portcullis House to do sessions. Adrian, where's that lovely jumper? Adrian Devant is one of the producers of the film Ithaca. He is Stella's brother. And this film also won the Audience Award and Best Documentary at the Soho London Film Festival in November last year. And rightly so, it's really very good film. And Andrew Feinstein, welcome.
Thank you.
Andrew was an African National Congress Member of Parliament in South Africa for 8 years. He then resigned in late 2001 to protest at levels of corruption. He is Executive Director at Shadow World Investigations, as well as a writer and campaigner. Welcome all three. Are you warmed up enough by that amazing film that you've got the fire in your belly? Have you got some questions? Because, yes, please. Let's take three at a time, perhaps. First one, have we got a couple more? Second one, have we got one more? We take a little group, or should we just take those two for now? The rest of you will be thinking, I hope, because this is a rare opportunity to pose questions. Please, would you like to ask? Oh yeah, have you got a microphone? It's coming.
Thank you. Mohammed Almazi, I'm a journalist. It's good to see you. So, quick question, which is, what has the reception been like? Because now the film has been out for a while, and there's been both a UK tour of screenings and a US tour of screenings. Have you noticed any kind of shift or change, either in public perception or in lobbying or in support, directly or indirectly, as a result of the film? That's the question. And then a quick comment. I thought I would mention that when Chris Williamson was a Labour MP for Derby North, he went to Belmarsh in 2019 at a time when Corbyn and others weren't going there. So I just thought, to be fair to him, I would mention that.
Sure. Thank you very much. That's good to know. And we'll take that in a second. Do you want all three to answer you?
Well, I suppose the people who've been most active on this, who would notice, so probably Stella and
Adrian.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to pass it along here, thank you.
Yeah. Hiya. So you've been basically battling the state for a while, trying to get your husband out of prison, and my question is kind of, do you still have faith in the bourgeois democratic state, or have you changed your mind in any sense, to how you may have thought before the process?
Did you have any faith in it to start with? One asked himself. Okay, so should we take the film reception question first?
Sure, thank you for the question, Mohammed. So the journey of the film really is, Gabriel and so I'm one of the producers of the film. The other producer is Gabriel Shipton. Gabriel's Julian's brother. So in this sense, it's a family film as well. Gabriel came away from his first visit to Belmarsh after seeing Julian, thinking that he might never see Julian ever again. That's how bad he was. It was the darkest place that we could begin the journey of this film. And we thought about how we could tell the story of this documentary. It made sense to tell it through following John's journey to begin with, and then it also became Stella's journey. We knocked on all the major doors to try to get support for it financially, in many different ways, and we were met by two reactions mainly. One was that, this is a family film, it's biased, we can't endorse anything that's biased by family. This is something that we never shied away from. we were very upfront about that this is our side of the story, and we felt that that was a story that was needed, that needed to be told because of a decade-long campaign of smears and lies. So we wanted to tell the story of the Julian that we know, the Julian that we love, the father, the brother, the son, and the gentle person that you know the family knows him for. So we started on this journey, and the other sort of point of rejection was that that obviously the political side, and we got the quote unquote this is not something we want to get in the middle of, by one of the very big names of streaming platforms. So there were those two aspects to it, but the journey has been, the support for the film has also in some way mirrored the support that's been growing and growing, and for Julian everywhere, and you feel it. There's been an unstoppable groundswell, and it keeps building, and we've felt it in Q&As with audiences. We felt it as the films progressed on the journey of the film, and you know, it's palpable now that this is a very different place than we were 4 years ago, which by the way is 4 years, almost 4 years since Julian went into Belmarsh prison.
Thank you.
Did I have any faith to begin with? I think, I mean, having studied law and politics in SOAS, it equipped me pretty well to be critical. But I don't think anyone, without, you know, I don't think I was in some kind of extreme where I was so cynical of the state that I thought, of course not, you know, this could never, you know, this is, of course they're going to go after him kind of thing. I think I was quite ambiguous to begin with. I definitely saw that Julian was in danger, that he was politically exposed in the beginning, that the normal way things should function were not functioning in his case, and therefore there was a strong indication that that processes had been politicized, and therefore the rule of law was not functioning. And that has been a constant actually since 2010. He lost his freedom on the 7th of December 2010. And for the first 9 years since his initial arrest, it was like he was battling a ghost, and the media played a large part into this narrative that he was paranoid, that he was battling something that actually didn't exist. And once it materialized in its most brutal form. 18 charges, 175 years, assassination plots, kidnap plans, and so on. So I don't think anyone, I was probably equipped to recognize a political persecution from the beginning. I don't think anyone could have predicted quite how brutal it is. It played out, the brutal way in which it has played out. Partly because I think there's been kind of the public has been kind of lulled into a sense of, I don't know, they kind of lost track of what was going on. And what has been done to Julian has been done to him because they have been able to get away with it, because they have been able to charge him with publications about the Iraq War, about the Afghan War, about diplomatic cables revealing torture and murder and war crimes. And they got away with it because the public has lost track of that being the material that he's charged with. So the protracted nature of it, the role the media has played in attacking his reputation, the kind of layers and layers of complexity that have been deliberately put on the case when actually it's a very simple case of political persecution of someone who publishes the truth and then gets thrown into prison. And I've had to think about how to explain this case to our children, who are 5 and 4. And you have to really distill things into its essence, right? And what I tell them is that their father is in prison not because he did anything wrong, but because he did what was right. And that the people who he embarrassed by doing what was right hold the keys to his prison cell, and they're keeping him in there. And that's what is a very simple reality. And it is a reality that the media has failed to deliver, right? The public doesn't understand the case. Why? Because the media has not explained it. They're capable of explaining complex issues all the time. They failed to explain this to the public.
Thank you very much. Adrian, you want to come in?
Just very quickly to say, so the work that we do is on the global arms trade, on the business of war, effectively. And the film alludes numerous times to how this lies behind why Julian is experiencing what he's experiencing. Besides the millions and billions that are made by the very people who are protecting themselves, the very politicians who make these decisions, the whole world of national security exists in its own legal sphere. When we published a book called The Shadow World Inside the Global Arms Trade, which was the first edition as long ago as the end of 2011, we recorded 522 violations of UN arms embargoes. Now, this is something that UN investigators have identified. 2 of those resulted in any sort of legal accountability whatsoever. 1 of them resulted in a conviction and a fine to the arms dealer who, besides describing it to me as an immoral conviction, said it wasn't even pocket change by comparison to the $158 million of profit I made on the deal. And then we take the case down to the level of silencing Julian and all of the work that he does, without which our sort of work would never have been possible. And you look at the conflicts of interest and the malpractice that has taken place at every stage of the legal process. And I would strongly recommend, and I must say I'm obviously not a member of the family, I'm not a part of any sort of legal team. I say this as someone who works on national security, and I would strongly encourage you to read a few articles in Declassified UK, a very good online publication about UK foreign policy and domestic defence and intelligence policy. To simply read the astonishing extent of the conflicts of interest and the legal malpractice that have characterised Julian's case.
Thank you very much. Just coming back to Mohammed's question a minute. You also wanted to see if Stella, do you want to say anything about the impact of the film, whether that's changed things in the world?
Well, I mean, I think the film is an important vehicle because it's so raw and intimate, right? We let you into our homes. And what we've seen for example, we screened this in the European Parliament back in October. And Julian had, I think at the time, had been nominated for the Sakharov Prize. We never expected him to be a finalist, but they did select him as a finalist, one of 3 finalists of the Sakharov Prize, right? This is the peak freedom of thought human rights award of the European Union, as expressed by its parliament, right? I think that wouldn't have happened without that screening that we did of Ithaca at the parliament. Similarly, in the Berlin International Human Rights Film Festival, it screened there, it opened the festival, it won the audience prize, which arguably is the most important prize of a film festival. And I think it's it also appeals to people because it is a completely different perspective on an issue that they thought they knew. And then they see the film and they say, well, actually, this is completely different to what we thought we knew. So as a campaigning vehicle, it has been effective because we've traveled around the UK showing the film, and then people feel personally connected and connect after it personally with me or Gabriel. You know, I get lots of messages on Twitter. Both of us have open direct messages, people who come to us and say, we saw the film, what can we do? We have this idea or that. And it's going to tour in the United States now over a period of 6 weeks. And, you know, we don't have huge releases, but we do get, here it was the Picture House cinemas, and in the US I think it's a network of Alamo, which is
And yeah, there's also
all over the US, so like,
institutional screen.
yeah, so we you know, people watch it and then they feel like they're personally, emotionally invested in this, and that's really what creates a shift, I think, when people connect.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have to say that I used to be the sort of person Niels described. Niels, when he said he was first contacted and said, I don't really want to touch this. Nina knows very well, I used to be quite sceptical about the whole situation. So that film really is transformative at lots of different levels. And the family, as you say, the family evidence is really, I'm sorry to say it in front of you, it sounds like we're asking you to do something special, but it's poignant to see, to have the children involved, and that's very important because this is Julian's life, even though he's not there to enjoy it. Have we got 3 more questions? Question here, second question, third question. Okay, let's take 4. So, no, we'll come back to you in a minute. So I've lost it already. 1, 2, 3, and 4, please. Doesn't have to be in that order, but I'm trying to give the impression of being orderly.
Hi, thanks. I have a question.
One's here.
Hi.
Can you wait for a thing? Please, thank you.
Hi, thanks. I'm Jonas Golland. I'm a musician and interested in the cultural implications of the film. And like you've said, it reaches a lot of people because it lets us in. And there's a lot of things in the film that you can't lie about, like letting us in your home and into your life. And my question is, there's obviously a lot of different cultural avenues of a story like this because it's such a global concern, whichever side you're on. So my question is, have you seen any examples of culture against Julian that take an exaggerated point of view?
Do you mean, can I just clarify that? We'll come back to you in a second, but do you mean that they're actually pushing back against the film specifically?
Either against the film or against
The narrative?
the narrative,
Yeah, okay, brilliant, thank you very much.
like culturally or
Number
in
2
the arts.
here, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Maria. Firstly, thank you for the film. It was really interesting to see a sort of human perspective above anything on the case. And it really shows how, obviously, as we all know, Julian is a scapegoat for a lot of people, and it's very clearly an injustice. So I was kind of interested in a few things that you all said. I mean, you said that like large companies or media outlets don't really want to get involved in making anything truthful, and you said that the media doesn't explain it properly, and you said that like there's a lot of people who have a conflict of interest. And I guess my thing is that obviously, as you showed at the end of the film, but also we're all here in this room, there's a lot of people that are totally in support of Assange, and there's quite a large collective. So what really is at risk, if that makes sense? And it might sound naive, but what the hell does it take if there are so many people who are supportive and what is at risk for the people who want to tell the truth, and what does it take ultimately to free Assange? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to just pass it down to Rose? Thank you.
Hi, just a very simple question. Where does the name of the film come from?
Okay, great. And thank you. Perfect system, more than one mic.
Hi there. So given that the stance of the US government hasn't changed regarding Julian, and it doesn't seem to change when their administration changes, and the film kind of mentions that it's Julian's freedom is being opposed by the national security apparatus over there. So is it, just like I want to understand, do you think it's like a culture which is kind of like cropped up in the national security apparatus over there, or are there like specific individuals who are kind of leading the fight against Julian's freedom? And if there are specific individuals who are kind of like, the ones that are really pushing back against, what you guys are trying to do, who are they?
Thank you very much. Who'd like to start? Who'd like to start that one?
Maybe on the culture. Well, absolutely, there has been a counter narrative that has been very deliberately imposed since day one of the publications, because there was a need to displace attention from what was actually inside the publications, i.e. Tens of thousands of civilian killings, of concrete cases of war crimes and crimes against humanity, of torture, of the US interfering in judicial processes in Germany, in Spain, in Italy, etc. The reporting initially was very significant, but after about 2 weeks of reporting on each of these publications, the attention shifted towards attacking Julian and WikiLeaks and the new way of doing WikiLeaks' new kind of model of doing journalism, and Julian with ad hominem attacks on his person and so on. And you could see this shift pretty predictably. And of course, Julian has also been a media critic, and he's been a media critic including of all the major partners of The Guardian, of the New York Times, etc. And that is not something that these major publications take lightly, especially not when Julian is such a significant figure. I mean, back in 2010, you named the name, you said WikiLeaks, and name a name associated to WikiLeaks, and people would say Assange, and then you'd be like, okay, who's the editor of The Guardian? The average person would have no idea. And all of a sudden you had WikiLeaks breaking the biggest stories ever in partnership with The Guardian and so on, but they were kind of secondary, right? So there was a motivation by some of the media to kind of downplay and counteract the impact of WikiLeaks, and to kind of try to undermine Julian's position and what he had achieved. And then you had the deliberate planting of false information. And this was very clear in 2017, 2018, and leading up to his arrest in 2019, to such an extent that there was a completely fabricated front page news story in The Guardian, which is kind of now a case study in journalistic malpractice. The date, I think, was the 27th of September 2018. a story published by Luke Harding, which he, anyway, there are several stories in Vanity Fair, in The Intercept, and in the Washington Post about how this was a false story, and how could the Guardian have published this as this fabrication, like how did they get it so wrong? And that was because there was such a failing in the media environment when it came to Julian and WikiLeaks that you could publish just about anything. And we know that this happened at the same time as the CIA was planning to kidnap and assassinate Julian inside the embassy. Of course, the CIA, I encourage everyone who hasn't looked into this aspect of the CIA, but a big section of the CIA concerns perception management and basically planting information, developing relationships with reporters, and fabricating information. And in this case, while they were planning his potential kidnap and assassination, and imprisonment, and the latter is what they succeeded with, they were also planting false stories. And so this film came about kind of as once Julian was in prison and we had faced, an extraordinarily powerful adversary, to do the only thing that was within our power, which was to give the counter-narrative, which was the truth.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm wondering if we could go, I'm not ignoring question 2 and 3, but if you would like to respond, because it follows on directly from what Stella's just described, which is the way the media has been manipulated and it's allowed itself to be manipulated. But to come to your question about what's going on behind the scenes, particularly in America, perhaps.
Yeah. I think it needs to be understood first in the context that, I personally don't believe it's about individuals in the American state. I think it's a systemic and structural thing. And the most obvious example of that is the reality that by the end of the Obama administration, they had charged and imprisoned more national security whistleblowers during that administration than all previous presidential administrations in US history put together. So, here is a president who, at least superficially, seems to be a liberal, but when it comes to the national security state, is as hardcore, if not worse, than all of the others. I think the other thing to understand, and this is why Julian's situation is of such concern to the world, to our democracies, to the future of freedom of information, freedom of the media, and the very nature of our democracies, where we're lucky enough to live in sort of partial democracies, is that everything that happens in the national security state happens behind a veil of national security imposed secrecy. It's why the arms trade accounts for 40% of all corruption in all global trade. And that corruption fuels and oils the wheels of our political systems. In the United States, you can actually plot it because it's legal, a form of legalized bribery. In the United Kingdom and Europe, it's illegal, but it happens to a very similar extent. And there are enormous political and material gains to be made. So you have the F-35 jet fighter, which has cost the American taxpayer over $2 trillion now, for a jet that the Defense Inspector General in the United States says doesn't work. Its combat suite, the brains of the aircraft, does not work. 26 countries, including the United Kingdom, have bought dozens and dozens of these incredibly expensive things. They're making no one safer. They're making us all poorer and less democratic. And it is this very mindset, and the media, the compliant media that doesn't ask the questions, that enables the sorts of war crimes that WikiLeaks and Julian exposed, and that enables them to continue. We look today at Yemen, at Palestine. We see an outpouring of sympathy for Ukraine, but silence about Yemen and Palestine, where it is our allies with our weapons making profits for us that have been committing atrocities against civilians like are taking place in Ukraine. So that's the nature of the systemic and structural national security state that Julian has taken on, and why Julian is being made an example of, as the film says, to shut the rest of us up so that it can continue as it is.
Thank you very much. So we would like to know the source of the name Ithaca, and also if you'd like to start with the million-dollar question, the double question at the back, which was, what the hell would it take to make a difference? And well, the first question was really, how have we got ourselves into this situation? The second one was, what the hell would it take to get us out of it and to get Julian free? So these are really, this is tough. This is but
Well,
why is it called Ithaca?
Why is it called Ithaca? Ithaca Ithaca is amongst other things. It's an island in Greece. It's the destination that Ulysses, after the Trojan War, that was his home. He was going back there. He got his journey took 20 years after many travails. Is that the word I'm looking for? So that's that. But for us, Ithaca has been a poem by Cavafy, the Greek Egyptian poet. And when John and Gabriel were touring the United States and trying to get meetings with the administration and so on, they also later did a whistle stop tour, and it was very intense. And this poem was something that they used to play and listen to in a rendition read by Sean Connery. You can find it on YouTube. It's a beautiful version, his reading of it. And they would sort of get a second wind. It would revive them. It would, the poem itself speaks a lot about the journey. Of course, the goal here is to free Julian, but it's this journey that we're on, this collective journey, and the journey talks about the people that we meet along the way, and in the journey itself, and that's really, John says at the end of the film, what gives you strength is the sort of energy that comes from accepting what comes towards you, and that's part of this journey, and you do what you can with it. So in that sense, this Ithaca to some people, for Australian audiences, Australia's Ithaca for Julian. Ithaca might also be John's journey in freeing Julian. So it's an open title, and I think it should sort of be open to interpretation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good answer. And do you want to say something about the?
What can we do? Is that what can we do? Is this?
Yeah, I guess it's like just simply there is so much support. What really does it take, and why is there so much risk for people who don't like tell the truth? Does that make sense? Like the media outlet that didn't get involved, for example.
Well, I think the what's at stake is really important. I mean, the film goes into it quite a lot. The way I see it is partly because of my age and the way I see the trajectory is, the so-called war on terror created all these exceptions to the kind of the edifice of the post-Second World War international legal and moral ethical order. And they said, well, there's this extreme terrorist threat. We have to be able to torture. We have to be able to have black sites. We have to be able to have Guantanamo. And the European states just played along. And then all that went on for 20 years. And then the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, well, the occupations ended to some degree. And then we're left with basically a dilapidated international legal order. And there's just been, what's been done to Julian has been to basically extrapolate from all these exceptions and say, well, now we're going to such an extent that the CIA says, well, now we're going to apply all these exceptions that we applied to the Guantanamo Bay detainees and the enemy combatants and so on. We're going to apply it to this guy, this publisher, this Australian publisher in Europe. Okay, so it's a complete abandonment of any kind of safeguards that existed. And similarly, as Andrew was alluding to, I mean, this development, you know, Obama was in many ways a wolf in sheep's clothing. The press freedom, the First Amendment protections that had existed even throughout the Cold War, which was obviously an extremely tense international situation. You know, there were a lot of leaks and whistleblowers during that time. Not even during the Vietnam War. Finally, the Pentagon Papers whistleblower Ellsberg, they abandoned the prosecution against him. The New York Times won the case. You know, this was a very tense moment in U.S. history. Then came Obama and then decided to basically go after sources, journalistic sources. That's what whistleblowers are. And Chelsea Manning got 35 years. And the Espionage Act was repurposed in order to inhibit the publication of embarrassing information. And during the Trump administration, Trump extended that further. So there was like, you know, in the 100 years of the Espionage Act, the Espionage Act had never been used in this way, and then it suddenly was, first against whistleblowers and then against publishers. And because the wording is so broad, it was easy to take that step. So what's at stake is like an enormous shift that we're in already. It's not like prospective. It's not like, oh, the Assange prosecution puts press freedom at risk. No, right now, like 4 years ago, that's the moment when it put it at risk. And now we're in 4 years into a new reality in which publishers are imprisoned by the United States. The rest of the world looks at this as a blueprint. You know, dissidents and publishers are not under some kind of consensus of protection anymore. This is now how courageous publishers are dealt with. They're put in prison, like Assange. Like that's a high-profile case where if you're not high-profile, you stand no chance. Like Julian has a lot of people fighting for him, sure, but he's up against the most powerful forces in the world who have violated the most basic and obvious international laws on torture, on you know, war crimes and so on. He's up against them. As someone who's just trying to expose their own government in corruption in this aspect, or you know, some extrajudicial killing of someone who's a nuisance and doesn't have much support, they stand no chance. So we're you know, it's a real shift. Like we're in a much worse place than we were 12 years ago or 13 years ago when WikiLeaks published. That was the height of accountability, of strong journalism being able to contribute to a strong democracy. We're now in a much more, much weaker position. And Julian's case, the outcome of Julian's case, determines basically whether we continue in a downward trajectory or whether we kind of gain a little bit of ground, but by no means where we were 13 years ago when he was first arrested. And what can be done, like, we have to fight like hell. Like, we really have to talk to everyone we know, you know, talk about the importance. Buy Neil Smeltzer's book, which is outside. I think there's a student discount There's Night Carnival on Saturday, which is kind of for the campaign. We've been wanting to. Yes, we do like a rally with speeches and so on. But on the 8th of October, we did a Hands Around Parliament. We needed at least 5,000 people. There were many more. And we did a human chain around the UK Parliament on both sides of the river, across the bridges and so on. The Night Carnival is a similar kind of, let's make noise, and really it's a fight for Julian's freedom, and I really believe that we will win this fight, because I see there's so much goodwill and good people fighting for his freedom. And the other side is powerful, but it's not motivated. A small number of people, or many people who are motivated, can achieve a lot more than people who are in the wrong, trying to do the wrong thing.
Thank you. We've got time for maybe a question. And I think possibly we should then close, because that was my instruction from Nina. Please ask your question.
Hello. Hello. My name is Stefano Balzan. I'm a student, and I don't study law, and I'm really struggling understanding the legal structure that is allowing all of this. I understand the threat of extradition as a geopolitical weapon. I understand isolation, imprisonment to the extreme level, coming from a country that is using it and uses it to protect itself from mob bosses, or during histories it was really useful for protecting the constitution. But I also understand that this is not the case where you should use such tool. So what I'm not understanding is, for an innocent man, how is it possible that the legal infrastructure is allowing all of this? We're not in the U.S. soil. So to make it tangible, what's happening inside the courts? Why is this happening, and what's the relationship between what you're doing outside of the courts and what's happening inside, for someone that doesn't understand it?
Thank you. Would you like to have a go at that? Would you like to have a go? Stella's just done a response.
I'm not the lawyer, so...
No, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I am going to defer ultimately to Stella.
Yes, of course.
But let me try and put it in some context.
Yeah.
When it comes to national security, our governments can effectively do what they want. And Stella outlined how things changed after 9/11 and in the response to 9/11. And it became possible to torture people, even though that was illegal. It became possible to sell weapons to people, even though it violated our own domestic laws, international laws, agreements that we'd signed up to, regional and international, and it is getting worse. I mean, we're seeing now a situation in this country where it's soon going to be impossible to as much as investigate, let alone prosecute, people in the military, people in the police services and related services for crimes they've committed during the course of their duty. Now, the reality is what WikiLeaks exposed were crimes committed during the course of duty, but they were still crimes. So it's as though when it comes to national security, the law doesn't matter. We had, you might remember a woman by the name of Liz Truss, who was Prime Minister of this country for 5 minutes and cost us all £74 billion in those 5 minutes. In her previous roles as Secretary of State for International Trade, she violated a court order from the appeal court in this country that arms sales from the UK to Saudi Arabia were illegal and had to be suspended in terms of British law. When it was pointed out in Parliament that there had been at least three arms exports since that court decision within a matter of weeks, she said, oh, it must have been due to some sort of administrative oversight or error or some miscommunication, but continued to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. In her next role as Foreign Secretary, she encouraged Britons to go and fight on the side of Ukrainian civilians. Now, whatever one might think about the plight of Ukrainians, it is illegal to participate in mercenary activities in terms of British law, but that didn't bother her at all. So we have this edifice in which the law is almost incidental. A British company called BAE Systems, the biggest arms maker in this country, paid 6 billion, that's with a B, pounds of bribes on one arms deal to the royal family of Saudi Arabia, to various intermediaries, and to the chief executive and chairman of BAE Systems, and to a number of British officials and politicians. 6 billion pounds. The Serious Fraud Office in this country settled with the company and fined them £230,000. So when it comes to national security, to matters to do with the arms trade, with our war activities abroad, the law is held in abeyance. But now what has happened, the very basis of habeas corpus, which I'm hoping Stella will explain to you, because I'll embarrass myself if I try, is being violated in the case of her husband, because he has now become a threat to that national security state and to the way in which we behave in the world. So they're using very similar tactics and strategies that they use at a systemic level to enable the British arms trade, British war making, etc., etc. They're now using against an individual, which is actually an attack on any journalist, on any citizen who isn't that comfortable with Britain being the United States' poodle in its various wars, in its corrupt arms dealing. So that's the sort of most simple way, without being a lawyer, I can put it to you. But I hope Stella's going to save me here.
So Stefan, the reason I asked Andrew to speak before Stella, I know he's not a lawyer, is because he's showing us that the context is actually not the context at all. The context of evil becomes the core business, because the law then becomes enslaved to this. And actually, if you ask a lot of citizens of a country like this, do you want to be safe or do you want to be dead? They'll say, obviously, you want to be safe, not dead. So you can manipulate these debates so that it seems as if it's worth all the exceptionalism.
In those cases you have...
Sorry?
In those cases you have a team of lawyers protecting corporate interests, and they are paid well. In this case, who's attacking him?
Who's attacking?
The most powerful states in the world,
Right.
and all of their lawyers.
But through which laws? That's what I'm not understanding.
Which laws?
Yeah, how?
So is this the moment for habeas corpus?
What's the tool?
Stella?
Espionage.
Yeah, the Espionage Act of 1917.
The most important thing that they've done effectively is they've made journalism a crime of espionage. So in their eyes, Julian and anybody else who reveals information about the national security of a state that that state doesn't want in the public domain, they are now committing the crime of espionage. So journalism has become the crime of espionage.
And that's in the UK.
Well, no, primarily in the United States, in the UK, in many parts of the European Union now.
So it's not, in the UK it's not like that.
Well, no, the answer is yes. In order to extradite Julian, and the lowest court in the UK has said that he can be extradited. In order to reach that conclusion, they have to conclude that there is dual criminality, i.e. that the US Espionage Act operates in a similar way to the way the Official Secrets Act operates in the UK, and that the same could be done if Julian were publishing UK secrets. The extraordinary thing about the US's proposition is that it says that its secrets basically have extraterritorial effect. So imagine, let's forget it's the most powerful country in the world. Let's say Iceland, tortures individuals, and then there's a UK journalist who starts publishing evidence of Icelandic torture, and then Iceland says, well, that's a secret. Never mind, it's illegal. Never mind, we're violating the Convention Against Torture, etc. It's illegal to reveal that in Iceland, and our laws have extraterritorial effect. Therefore, we're going to extradite you from the UK to Iceland and put you in prison for the rest of your life. That's the proposition. That's the new model. That's what's happening, and what the UK has said is perfectly okay. I think the issue is you shouldn't view what's happening to Julian through a legal lens. This is a political case.
Yeah.
And the law is basically an instrument. It's an instrument that has been deployed to persecute, to imprison in the most in a way that is used in many countries, except it's used by the US. The US has a lot of money behind its press freedom initiatives and its NGOs talking about press freedom and so on. So it's a bit jarring, but you look at the case that they've put forward, and it is criminalizing putting true information that reveals evidence of crimes committed by the state that have been crimes that are completely impune, and they want to put the publisher in prison for the rest of his life. That's the case.
Sorry, who's passing judgment? Is there a judge or is there a jury? It's a judge, presumably.
It's a judge.
That's what I mean. So where's the jury on this? Because don't you have common law? And common law can change things. I'm not an expert on these things, but it does sound like a
kind of the
common law
problem is that this is
totally
an
trips it
extradition
up.
case. An extradition case, the Extradition Act was passed, well, the US-UK extradition treaty was passed in the aftermath of 9/11, when a lot of legislation was passed. Basically, safeguards for individuals fell away. It became almost an automated process. The extradition with the US is quite administrative. The UK judge doesn't get to see any prima facie evidence. We don't get to cross-examine the prosecutors. They just put in.
It's bent, really.
It is completely bent.
Yeah.
And so that it's not like the UK judge gets to look at the merits of the case. They look at the UK legislation, which, by the way, is atrocious.
Yeah.
And say, well, actually, and this actually has an impact, right? If you have the UK judges saying, well, yeah, the Official Secrets Act is kind of like the US Espionage Act, and they operate in the same way. It's now being tested. Like, if the High Court agrees with the lower court's decision, this is now Official Secrets Act is going to be able to be deployed in the same way. Basically, you have very draconian legislation here, but it's never really been used against the publisher. It's just there as like a deterrent. But this case is actually shaping the way secrecy operates in the UK as well.
Can it never go to the jury?
No.
Right.
So thank you for those points.
Sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask, I think maybe we should bring it to a close really. I was wondering, because the film has been the cornerstone of the evening, would you like to say anything more about what we can do? Can people get access to it easily? Can we tell our friends to watch it?
Yeah.
Is it available?
So you can watch the film online at Dartmouth Films, and that gives you access to the film for 48 hours. I think it's £9.99. We are going to put more screenings up, but one of the things that you can do, and you can spread the word about this, is that you can host your own screening. So if you get in touch with Ithaca.movie, that's Ithaca with a K, of course, .movie, on our website, you can click through to, it's actually screenings at Ithaca.movie, And if you write us, we will get in touch with you, and there's a screening guide on there, so you can screen the film. It's been screened everywhere, not only in movie theaters or universities and so on, but it can really be screened anywhere. Get people together in a room, have a discussion like this. If we're free and available, we'll come and do a Q&A like this. But just one of the things that John, who you've seen tonight in the film, often says at Q&As is just talk about Julian, keep his name alive and keep talking about him. We'll get there, we'll win this fight, but we have to keep, if each one of you talks to one person whom you haven't talked about Julian to yet, that is a very important thing. So you just keep talking about him, come to the night carnival on the 11th, encourage people to come along, get involved, go to don'textraditeassange.com, sign the petitions there, make people aware of it, of the website.
Write to your MPs.
Write to your MPs. If that's another thing. If they get one email, they might not take a lot of might not heed it. But if they get 2 or 3, they might start worrying that maybe there's 30 or 50 people who have the same worries, and that might prick their ears up. So just keep pushing and write to your local representatives.
Thank you very much. What were you going to?
Yeah, right.
No, okay. I think we should conclude the evening. Just before I say thank you, can I also say thank you to Nina, who set this all up, and Rana, where are you? Is Rana behind the pillar? Is she there?
I'm here.
Rana, can you just stand up and take your mask off for a second? So Nina and Rana are core members of the team who work on the ICOP system, and we also have a couple of student reps here. I don't know if you want to come to the front. If any students here want to talk, because we've now got a mirroring. We've got the ICOP, and we've got a student team to be. Do you want to say a little bit?
I, as a student, would just want to say that there is some resistance that we are facing from universities as well in terms of free speech and securitization, and I feel like this is a general trend that is happening everywhere, that now you can't be a critic.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is why we all need to unite and just resist this, because if Julian is being silenced, then okay, dissent is being silenced everywhere. Just as a student, I felt that.
Okay, so you'd be happy to talk to anybody if they want to talk to you afterwards about the student group?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. So please, may I thank Stella. Every time you come out and talk about this, it must be, it makes huge demands on you, but thank you very much. Adrian, thank you so much for making this amazing film. It's very, very powerful, and I hope we can disseminate it in lots of different ways. And Andrew, thank you for, scales have been removed from any of our eyes if they were there. You've been very clear about the corruption which is under the table and which is actually ruling our lives and dominating all the political decisions really that are being made. So this is what we are fighting for Julian Assange, but also for democracy. It's a very big problem that we are facing. And thank you so much for being here to bear witness to this evening. And Nina and Rana will be here. Rana very kindly agreed to be a marshal because the person who was delegated to be the marshal lives a long way away. Just knew this was going to be a long evening, so Rana stepped in her place. And that's what we all need to do. Brilliant panel, wonderful panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And please join us on Saturday, if you can, 4 o'clock, Lincoln's Inn Fields. We're going to march to Parliament, and then we're going to hold a rally. And it's a carnival, so you can dress up if you want to, if you're so inclined.
You hop on one leg like the guy at one point of the film. So